Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Issachah Savage, and I am honored to be your host for the evening. Welcome to Unplugged, Young Black Artists Speaking Out. The Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts, also known as CAAPA, have an exciting and informative panel discussion planned for you. I'm thrilled about this event and the panelists that are chosen to participate, as CAAPA is one of the few organizations providing a platform specifically for young artists of this generation to allow them to let their voices be heard amidst the great challenges in our world. COVID-19, civil unrest due to police brutality, inequity in the classical world of arts, and probably much more. We will come to understand not only how the panelists feel about these current events, but also how they are finding ways to cope and develop inspiration in the face of it all. I'm very excited to hear from these young artists. But first, I would like to introduce CAAPA's co-founder and chairperson, Ms. Pamela Simonson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here with us this evening. I am so excited as my brother Victor and I started CAAPA many years ago to give back to the community. And our community is vibrant, it's talented, it's fierce. And so we are so grateful to have a panel of talented, fierce, and vibrant artists that I look forward to hearing from this evening. And I know not only are we going to learn from them, but we want to know as CAAPA how we can help you. So please stay in touch with us. Thank you for being here again. And I am so ready to hear what this next hour brings. Next up, you will hear my mother and the executive director for CAAPA, Terry Allen.
Good evening and welcome to Unplugged. I'm so grateful that you're here tonight with the Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts. We have a panel of wonderful, wonderful young people. But before we get started, I'd just like to let you know that CAAPA is an arts organization, nonprofit, that helps bring color to the classics. And we do that by supporting Black classical musicians and others in the performing arts. We are so grateful for these young people tonight because we want to hear their voices. I want you to continue to support CAAPA as you have been doing in the past. We're so grateful for your kind consideration. And if you feel so inclined, please help support the Music Scholarship Program. You'll see something on your screen later on after the panel. And if you would like to make a contribution to the coalition to help Black classical musicians, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. We want to thank all of our volunteers and all of the participants tonight for just being here and being a part of this wonderful panel discussion. And now, without further ado, we have a wonderful, wonderful moderator. I met her just a few years ago. She began with CAAPA as an intern. She just graduated and moved on up. She is now an arts administrator doing a very fine job with a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. Please, I'd like to welcome, and please join me in welcoming, Kristina Lyles.
Thank you, Ms. Terry, for that gracious introduction. Again, as Ms. Terry said, I did start out as an intern, and I have a deep love for CAAPA and all of the artistic endeavors that they have been accomplishing and affording for our youth and aspiring young African-American musicians. I just, again, want to welcome you all for tuning in to our Unplugged Talkback series with artists and arts administrators. Tonight, I am so thrilled about the conversation that we're going to have with our panelists. As mentioned before, we have a panel of young African-American musicians and arts administrators. That said, all of the loss, negative impact, and hard hits our nonprofit arts sector has experienced is no surprise to any of us. As a result, we are here today to have an open, transparent, and genuine conversation about the experiences that the panelists have faced within the last 6 months. And now, I would like to introduce our wonderful panelists. I will call their names, and then they will give us a little introduction about themselves. First, we have Joshua Banbury, who is a vocalist.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joshua Banbury. Like she said, I have just graduated from the new school. I studied fine arts. I am a interdisciplinary vocalist. I used to study classical voice and wanted to be an opera singer, but now I've transitioned to jazz and I write operas as well. And CAAPA has supported me in every endeavor since I was singing opera about 5 years ago. So I'm really grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you, Joshua. Next, we have Angel Bethea, who is a drummer but also has experience in arts management.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be here today. I'm a native Washingtonian. I just graduated from the George Mason University School of Music for Jazz Studies and Arts Management. I've primarily played jazz music, but I'm fluent in many different styles. I was introduced to CAAPA about a year, 2 years ago through the director of ensembles, and it's been a great experience every time I've been with them. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for sharing. Now we have Hakeen Henderson.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. I'm a native of Baltimore, Maryland. I currently attend Morgan State University. I'm in my final semester here, and I'm there, and I major in vocal performance with a minor in piano. I study with Dr. Green, and I frequently perform in the DMV area. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I would like to introduce Randall Goosby, who is a violinist.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Kristina and Terry, for that lovely introduction. I actually was just made aware of CAAPA about a week or two ago when I had the, excuse me, when I had the pleasure of participating in a similar panel to this with Miss Terry Allen, and was so pleased to be made aware of this organization. Like Kristina said, I'm a violinist. I've just recently graduated from the master's degree program at Juilliard, and I'll be returning there in the fall for an artist diploma. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you all.
Thank you so much, Randall. Now I would like to introduce Joshua Jenkins.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joshua Jenkins. I'm the CAAPA Director of Ensembles and have been so since the 2019-2020 season. I've been working with CAAPA since I was about 15 years old. I would do gigs at performances that they would do and events that CAAPA would do. And Miss Allen and the rest of the CAAPA team has been nothing but supportive in me in all of my endeavors in all the time I've been involved with CAAPA. So I'm born and raised in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I attended the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and I'm a graduate of Temple University, where I majored in piano performance. But I have studied and performed both classical and jazz music, as well as gospel and R&B and lots of different styles. So I've been performing in the area for several years now. And I'm very much looking forward to being here today and being part of the conversation.
We are excited that you are joining us this evening. Thank you, Joshua. And now I would like to introduce Channie Jones.
Hi, everyone. My name is Channie Jones, and I am an arts administrator. I work in the fields of philanthropy, community development, and art education. My background, I graduated from Purdue University in studying art education, and I recently graduated Goucher College with my master's in arts administration, along with our lovely moderator, Kristina. And I'm just very excited to join you all today. I heard about the CAAPA program through Kristina in our work at Goucher College, and just hearing about the contribution to the field that this program offers to artists, as well as ways that I can support. So I'm just very excited to join you today. And for the people that are viewing, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Channie. Now I would like to introduce Kianna Marie Kelly-Futch.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kianna. I started performing when I was 2 years old, and I started classically training in piano and voice when I was 5 years old. I just graduated from Duke Ellington School of the Arts for vocal music, and I'm going to Manhattan School of Music in the fall in New York City for musical theater. I started with CAAPA not too long ago for Soprano Slaves, which was a great opportunity for me to be with amazing opera singers, so it was a good experience. But one day I would love to be on Broadway and become a performing arts instructor, so I'm just very excited.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Kianna. And now I would like to introduce Alex Plummer.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alex Plummer. I'm definitely honored to be here amongst all you guys. I'm a native of Washington, D.C. I started playing instruments at the age of early 3 and gradually learned other instruments as far as piano, drums, organ, and a few other things. Recently was Grammy nominated as a producer. I worked with Faith Evans, Tyrese, Jaganez, Sierra Lloyd, and a few more, Tamar Braxton. And I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to have the conversation tonight in regards to the topic. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much, all of the panelists who have shared. I now want to ask you to unmute your cameras so that we all can see your beautiful faces at once. Thank you. All right. I think that's everyone. And so before we start, I just want to say again to our viewers who are joining us, this is an Unplugged series. This is a panel that's going to talk about the impact that some of us African-American arts administrators and artists have experienced during this time of the coronavirus, of police brutality, the pushback against racial inequality, and just trying to listen to one another to see what the needs are and how we can bridge gaps within our communities and within our field of the arts. I would like to start with my first question, which reads, how has your artistic endeavors been impacted during the outbreak of the coronavirus? And can we first start with Channie?
So for me, I recently graduated from Goucher College, and I think with anyone, when you're starting into a new field, you have dreams and aspirations. And when stepping into this creative economy, this was not expected for anybody. My background is in art education, and I work in philanthropy and community development. So of course, those are areas that were definitely hit very much so by the coronavirus, along with the guidelines and restrictions that come with education, come with performing arts venues, visual arts venues. So it was very much so adapting not only in my current practice, but also what I see my next direction in. So what I've done is just take really a good amount of time to talk with friends in arts administration, as well as artists, about how I can ground myself and really concentrate on what's my next direction and inform of the next direction for myself. I've just been viewing it as what are the things that are going to grow me personally and professionally. And if that is not the direction that it's carrying me in, then I decide to either take a pause on that next direction or reevaluate. So that has been how I've been personally affected by the coronavirus.
Thank you so much for sharing, Channie. Does anyone just want to go ahead and go next? Kianna, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll go. This pandemic has definitely altered my life in a big way. From a person that used to go to Duke Ellington School of the Arts, that was so used to performing on stage and throughout the community, it definitely altered things in a big way. But it doesn't stop here. I definitely have used social media and to really present my gifts and my talents, and not only showcase what I can do, but also to showcase that youth today are still making a positive impact and are trying to change today's society. And so for me, I think that I have taken great steps as to using my art form to really give back to the community, regardless of the pandemic or not.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you are really trying to raise your artistic voice and really use that to, like you said, give back to communities. I think that's really what more of us need right now. We need a little bit more love in our communities, a little bit more attention and resources. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Joshua, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. The first two words that would come to my mind when I think of the impact of this pandemic on, I think, all of our careers in the arts is severe and abrupt. Because, I mean, how do you prepare for something like this? It's just, I think I've done maybe 2 or 3 performances, 2 in person, and even those were small, since March 13th. And, the effect of that, not only financially, but also on my own well-being, has made me totally reevaluate the impact of what I do and the possible ways that I can shift my focus to making sure that what I'm doing is impacting people positively. Because I think one thing that's overlooked in all of this is the mental health effects of having to stay inside all the time and to be socially cut off from people. And I think that the arts, things that stimulate your mind creatively and, you know, are able to really affect people's minds and spirit and a lot of those things that are overlooked on a day-to-day basis, that's what is a valuable impact of what I do. And so it's really helped me to understand that and to take every note that I play and realize that I can help somebody get through a difficult time, which, you know, has always been the case with the arts. But I think during this time, it's very, very important to remember that we can use what we do to help people get, it's for these times that we do what we do. So that's how it's impacted me in terms of re-shifting my focus on why I'm doing what I do.
Thank you for sharing. I truly agree with you. And just thinking about the arts have the ability to speak to so many different people. It's a universal language, whether it's dance, whether it's drama, whether it's singing. You know, it has a way of just speaking to different things that are experienced in people's lives. And it is a difficult space to be in that we haven't been able to creatively share what we have inside of us as creatives to bring that person to the next point of healing. And so I definitely understand where you're coming from and the mental health impacts that this time has had within our sector and for a lot of people that are actually experiencing a lot of trauma during this time. Thank you for sharing. Hakeen, would you like to go?
Yes. So how this virus, this pandemic has affected my artistic endeavors, it has been very difficult as a young singer, especially one who is currently still in college, seeking employment and opportunities to continue to not only get themselves out there and promote their art, but also in an area in the DMV area where there's very limited opportunity. It's a lot of the opportunities that people in the DMV area they gain artistically are usually through churches or through local events and things in that nature, through word of mouth, things like that, unless you're in a very art district or artsy city or a culture such as like Philadelphia, New York, or Los Angeles, but Maryland or DC, it's not in high demand, especially for classical music. Even my personal job, which I love to sing at Mount Zion Lutheran Church on North Gay Street in Baltimore, has been affected greatly, and that supports me going through college. But I take this time to use it as a student because I'm a student first, and most importantly, and just stay connected with my teacher, looking at roles, singing, things like that, and also joining forums to talk about some of the racially charged issues at hand, and how we as African Americans, especially young African Americans, can be a part of the movement. I mean, we're not as seasoned singers who don't have larger platforms, but I'm trying to find my niche as how I can use my voice to bring about these issues, specifically, mainly since we're in a time period such as this where things are, you know, everything isn't so hush hush. So I try to use my voice to try and bringing African American operas to the stage, or African American art songs, which are very obscure. So though it's a very difficult time period we're in, I still remain optimistic.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're remaining optimistic. The last 6 months, I will say, since the pandemic really began to just take a turn for the worst, a lot of people have lost hope. A lot of people have lost family members, have lost their jobs, and just so many different things. So I'm happy to hear that you are trying to find creative ways to express yourself, to find a little support, to keep yourself going and to keep yourself in a positive mindset, because it's difficult. So I'm really happy that you're still trying to find ways to thrive creatively. Thank you for sharing. Joshua Banbury, would you like to share?
Sure. I think my process has kind of been like the antithesis of most. I before this was always working on a project. Every week I was trying to put something out. I was singing at jazz clubs or whatever, just always preparing something. This has given me the time to really stop and assess what it is I really want to do. I realized I wasn't really taking enough time to really think about my next steps and think about the intentionality behind what I was trying to do. And two, just to check in with myself. I just graduated school, and there was just so much going on that this time has been for me. I've just been able to tell myself, you don't have to do anything for a month. That's a part of your artistic process. Washing dishes, doing the most simple things, inspiration can come that way. And I had been before this been like just going to the practice room every day and waiting and like trying to push something out of myself. And that's not natural, I don't think, for me in my process. So I have just now, it's been about 5-6 months. I've just now gotten back into working on certain projects. I've had a few gigs over the quarantine, and I've taken them as they've come, but I have not actively searched for opportunities. I've just let this be as natural as it can be for me. And now it's been so long that I'm like, okay, I need to start doing something. And I feel like it just feels more natural to me now.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. I'm really happy to hear that you gave yourself that space and the time to kind of recoup, to be okay with everything that's been going on, to be in a space where every time you turn around, you have to drastically pivot your plans and change what you were planning to do. It can be mentally draining, taxing, and tiring. It can lead to burnout. It can also just lead to lack of creativity, writer's block. I mean, all of those things. So I'm really happy that, again, you've taken that time to just let yourself be free, and then now trying to pivot back into the work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alex, how about you?
Yeah, the way that it impacted me, especially as a tour musician as well as a producer, it's very mentally draining. I think, but on the positive side, I think it's very good because as creatives, and I think Joshua has said something like this, as creatives, you constantly just hustle and you don't really understand when to just really cool down your thoughts and understand what's next. And sometimes we're always moving, and there's other things inside of us that we don't even understand. Greater things that we could possibly do, but we won't know if we keep doing the same thing. So I think that it impacted me in I wouldn't necessarily say a negative way, but a very interesting way, a bittersweet way, because even financially, let's just say if you had 90% of your income coming in monthly, it has, it's changed. So how do you come up with certain things? How can you be a creative as a creative? How can we make more money this way? How can we, so that's the bitter part. But the sweet part is that it's a grace period. It allows you to, like I said, refocus, kind of get your mind back to where it needs to be. And I think by the end of it, we should be further than where we are right now. Because of it. So it's been bittersweet. It's been bittersweet, but I do think that it won't last long. But yeah, it's been bittersweet.
Thank you for sharing, Alex. We're definitely hopeful that this will soon start to get to a place where we're transitioning out of the pandemic. But right now it's just been really tough, and I can see how you have experienced a bittersweet kind of moments throughout the pandemic. I can see that, you know, obviously there's been so much loss, like you said, financially, if you were expecting income, if you had specific projects or tours that you were expected to go on, and then now suddenly it's not coming in, that one in and of itself can be stressful and just cause a person to be in a space where they're experiencing anxiety, potentially going into depression and so many things like that. But also, as Joshua was saying earlier, I think it is a good time for some of us artists who have been on that grind, as you were saying, constantly just moving and grooving, to take a moment to just breathe, to just let out all of those emotions, all those feelings, and really take time to put together a game plan so that we can start to pick things up where they fell off and just try to make sense of what's left. So thank you. I definitely could see the bittersweetness of this time. And Angel, how about you?
So over the past few months, the past 6 months, 5 months, I've been significantly impacted, like most people as well. I was one of those people not taking a break to do anything, not really caring about much, but just making sure I'm going to the next gig, catching on to the next project, going to the next club. And I just remember the day, March 13th, was definitely a deciding day. For me, I was in the middle of a gig and I looked on the TV behind the bar and they were saying the NBA is shutting down. And I was just like, oh, okay. So that's what's going on. Yeah. And so it's kind of like bad news just kept coming in, cancellations over the next week. And I kind of just shut down, and I'm kind of taking it as a way to stop and just reevaluate, as most people are saying, take a breather, which I haven't been doing, and just realize there are some other important things going on. I've taken it as an opportunity to learn new skills. I'm a very hands-on person, very into live performances. So it's given me opportunity to check out what's going on online. As Hakeen mentioned earlier, there's so many forums, so many communities, so many other things going on that we can check out and try and add to what we're doing, or see what we can do to add to other people's voices or help other people out as well. So it's been good and bad for me, I'd say, as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think hopefully what a lot of us creatives will take away from this is realizing the importance of self-care. As many of us has said that, you know, we go, and we don't take moments to take care of ourselves and pour back into ourselves. And self-care is very important. And so I hope that during this time, a lot of artists and creatives have found things that pour back into them, that make them feel refreshed and renewed, because it is important. And it also makes you feel, for me, I would say as a creative, it makes me feel a little bit sharper when I go back to approach my work. So hopefully that is one thing that we will take away during this time. Thank you. And lastly, Randall, would you mind sharing?
Sure. Well, the points that everyone has brought up, I don't really have too much to add. I relate so strongly to what everyone has said so far. I mean, the financial impact is goes without saying. That day, the day that Angel was just talking about, March 13th, that was like the realization for me. Okay, the NBA is canceled. Okay, we're not doing too hot, you know. I miss basketball. Anyways, that's besides the point. Obviously, the financial impact. I mean, the nature of our work as artists and as creatives is collaborative. And one of the things that I've taken away from my education so far is being able to work off of my colleagues and pick up on new ideas and just make something brand new that's never been heard before. And now we don't really have that opportunity. I mean, I've been a part of some virtual collaborations where, you know, you've got an AirPod in or a headphone in on one side and you're playing with a click track or a pre-recorded recording, something like that. And as fun as it is to feel like, you know, you're playing with someone, you can't feel their energy, you can't feel their breath and things like that. But, you know, as several people have mentioned, there's upsides and downsides. And Hakeen was talking about just trying to stay optimistic and staying positive. So you know, with this time that we now have to sit back and reflect and not have to meet deadlines and you know, be under all of this stress and pressure, it's an opportunity to reflect on, okay, how is our art form going to be different from what it is right now? You know, virtual reality is going to become, I think, a much bigger part of what we do going forward. So, you know, amongst all the things that we have to think about right now, one of the things I've been trying to grapple with is, okay, how am I going to have to change my game plan going forward, as far as, you know, if I'm not going to be able to be in front of a live audience for the next 6 months or even a year, how is it that I can still stay connected and stay inspired, and provide that opportunity for those that I might have been playing for, you know, if this weren't going on. So it's very bittersweet, but you know, I think we're all taking it one step at a time. And you know, I really just appreciate the opportunity to be with my family and kind of relax if I can a little bit, and just sit back and reflect. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Randall. I definitely agree with a lot of the things that you said, as far as like the bittersweetness of it. But a lot of what you said is bringing me to my next point, which I would like to extend to the group, which is, can you share a few ways of how you've had to adapt and shift your work during this time, and how have those experiences been? And you can just kind of raise your hand and I'll just say your name and then you can share from there. Kianna?
Okay, so like I said before, my previous answer, I feel like using social media and technology, especially like Zoom and different things, has definitely been a shift for me, knowing that in the entertainment world, you know, being in person is our way of communicating with people. So it's definitely been a situation where I've had to adapt to advanced technology, being able to communicate in that way, which has helped me a lot, especially as artists. Some of them do live auditions on camera. So we have to adapt in that way. I also work with the Banbury Youth Leadership Institute in Washington, D.C. And besides using my art form, I've been able to use my voice for youth to communicate to them, to make sure, because they're going through the pandemic as well, especially graduating seniors 2020, who were not able to have prom, who weren't able to graduate in a live graduation. So I've been able to not only use my voice for advanced technology and other things like that, but also my voice to keep people pushing, to keep them pressing on, to know that one day we'll get through this.
Thank you so much. I think that is so important, that you are doing that work of trying to propel the younger ones beneath us to keep going. I think that is so important, because I feel like some people are feeling like they're hitting a wall, but I think with just a little bit more encouragement, a little bit more attention, we can kind of get through it. And as you said, I know when I first had to kind of channel into the new Zoom world, this new virtual space, I was feeling very burnt out initially, because it was very difficult for me to adjust to having to communicate through Zoom and not have that personal interaction that I was so accustomed to before. But I'm definitely so happy to hear that you are just trying to uplift and encourage those that still have to move on in this time to just keep going. So thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to share for this question, Hakeen?
Yes, so piggybacking off of what I believe Kianna said, Zoom has definitely been a shift, especially as someone who is always performing in front of someone or in front of a teacher to gain feedback. You know, sometimes it delays and sometimes it doesn't pick up on what it is that you're singing or what it is that you're doing, so you have to repeat it again, or just if you use like an accompanist or some of those platforms, you're trying to you're trying to keep up with that time of whoever is playing on those apps or on the Pocket Pianist. I know that's a YouTube channel. And just trying to adapt to that tempo instead of having someone accompany you. But I think the benefit of it, this may sound kind of silly, is not having to get up in the morning and get ready and all of those things like that. You can actually do it like literally right in front of whoever you're singing to. So I think that's a benefit right there. You don't have to spend money on gas or, have to deal with people, getting into an Uber or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think it's definitely it definitely has been a transition. But again, I still remain optimistic.
Thank you. I think that is so true. And a lot of us have been talking about the savings that we have experienced from getting ready in the morning, like you said, the long commute. For me personally, I live in Maryland and I work in Washington, D.C., which is the drive in and of itself every day. But there is a lot of just time saving that's happening, which is very convenient because, again, it does give us that time to have more self-reflection in the mornings before we get our day started, time to gather our thoughts about how we want to approach our day and what we need to complete and get done. So I think being optimistic is the thing to do right now. Thank you, Hakeen. Is there anyone else before we move on to our next question? Okay. Yes, Joshua.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say there were two main ways in which I've been shifting the focus of what I do, or the way that I've been shifting my artistry. One has been from performing. I've been changing a lot in what I do in that sense, and the other one is teaching. In terms of performing, it's like Randall said, it's having the headphone in one ear with the click track going. That's been a lot of the collaborative projects I've been doing with people that have been based that way. And you can get a lot done, but it is fundamentally very, very different to be making music and making art with someone who you're not in the room with. I mean, that's like, the end result is, I mean, it's still amazing to be able to connect with people. And I think it speaks to our perseverance, how we can still make beautiful music this way. But it is, I mean, it's very different to say the least. That's been something that I've been doing a lot. And then in terms of teaching, me and Angel are actually in the midst of doing a 4-week summer intensive program with the Washington Jazz Arts Institute right now. And that's a program that our teacher, Davey Yarbrough, and the founder, has been doing for 22 years, and it's been in person. But this year is the first year that we've been doing it all over Zoom. And let me tell you, there have been some problems, but we've been adapting and we've been changing. I mean, there's all kinds of unexpected problems that come from that. Not least of which, how do you keep students engaged through a screen? How do you keep them just as engaged in the same way? A lot of my teaching has to do with being able to look at what students are doing with their wrists while they're playing piano. And that all affects on their camera. I mean, their camera angle has to be set up in a way that I can see what they're doing. And it just totally changes everything that I've been doing in terms of that. But we're still getting it done is the point. We're shifting. And so that would be the main way that, Zoom has been, like other speakers have said, getting used to this new platform is the biggest hurdle to continuing to do what we do.
I definitely agree. Zoom has been an adjustment, but it has been a benefit to us. So I appreciate it as we are on Zoom right now facilitating this panel. Thank you again for sharing. And so I do have one more question before we transition into the next segment. And again, just please feel free to speak freely and just to answer as you wish. And the next question is, I know earlier someone mentioned in their response, as far as the impact, is that the financial impact that has been experienced, that people have not been receiving the money that they should have or were planning to. And the question is, have you been able to utilize any of the grant opportunities or other funding resources that have been distributed during this time? And if you have, just let me know. Kianna?
I can say yes, I've definitely taken advantage of like the funding and grant opportunities. I am going to be a freshman in college at Manhattan School of Music in New York. And so I am definitely taking advantage of this time, saving enough money. I just had a graduation drive-by not too long ago. And I was blessed by lots of friends and family that were contributing to my dreams. And so I definitely have taken advantage of scholarship opportunities, donations from family and friends, just to make sure I get to where I want to be.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. I do have one question that just came in from one of our viewers, and I'm going to just read it. And it reads, have any of you learned a new skill or something new about yourselves during this period? Kianna?
Okay, well, I have discovered that I have a love for Zumba fitness. Staying active is one of my main things that I try to do, because you can definitely get caught up, quarantine, eating, all of that. So definitely staying active, walking with my mom occasionally, and I'm doing Zumba fitness with my cousins and everything else, so that I can make sure that I'm looking the image for what I want to do in the future, which is to be a performer.
That is great. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing, Joshua.
Yeah, because I guess this whole thing has been very insular, I've really taken a greater interest in writing. And I've, long before all of the issues that have been popping up with administration and diversity, I've been interested in writing operas for Black people about the African diaspora. But I never had the time to really like sit down and write a libretto. So I've been really taking the time now to sort of work more on my writing, which is like, I think this is the perfect time to be writing. The music is a little difficult to figure out. I don't play piano. I play dulcimer, it's like a banjo guitar thing. I'm working on that, but other than that, I'm used to collaborating with other people to make music, which has been another thing that I've realized I need to be less dependent on other people to create music. So that's been an epiphany that I've had. But yeah, I've been focusing more on writing.
I'm happy to hear that. And speaking back to your response, you brought me to my next question and the next topic, which I now want to transition into the fight for racial equality, the pushback against police brutality. And my question is, how have you lent your artistic voice during this racial justice movement? Randall?
This is the part of the conversation that I got really excited about, getting invited to this panel. I guess to put it simply, the way that I've been using my voice artistically and otherwise is having panels like this and organizing conversations about these matters and about the injustices and the problems in this country that we as Black people have faced our entire lives and continue to face. And one thing I've learned from these conversations is that people don't really get it yet. And to me, I speak through my instrument, and as much as I love to do that, and as much as I want to do that, there are things that need to be said right now that I can't say through my instrument. And so having conversations like these and giving people an opportunity and a privilege to be made aware of some of these things that we've been dealing with for so long has been something that's been really important to me. And already I'm seeing a little bit, emphasis on little bit of a shift in mindset on a general scale towards a greater level of understanding and empathy for the Black experience. And I think that if we can keep up the momentum and having important and uncomfortable conversations like these, we can continue to make strides towards greater equality and fairness in this country, and specifically in our art form. So that's one of the things I've been doing a lot of.
I wholeheartedly agree with that response. Thank you, Randall. Joshua, go.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question because I've always felt that because you're a Black artist, your art must always be focused on civil rights or Black Lives Matter or the Black experience. And I've always felt that pressure since I started making, like, I guess, professional work, that these companies that I was hired to work for or whatever, they were expecting me to be presenting them with a concert around that. And I think it's very important, but I think it's also, for lack of better words, it felt unfair. It seems unfair that because I'm Black, I can't make work that's ethereal, that has nothing to do with my race or my gender. I can't just write an opera or whatever about like the galaxy or something that has nothing to do with any of that. It always seems, I feel the pressure to always have to write about Black struggle or sing about Black struggle. And like I said, I think it's important. I've been finding other ways to do that, but I have been paying very close attention to not feeling pressured to have to say anything because that's work. And I feel like Black people we do enough work. And I feel like if any of us or if any of you are feeling traumatized or overwhelmed and it's like too much to have the responsibility to like be some sort of like voice or beacon in this time for like racial inequality, it's not something that should be forced. That's something that I've had to like reconcile with myself. And I feel like it's a little controversial, but a lot of times I just think it's kind of unfair.
I agree. Channie, do you have anything to add to this question?
I love that you brought up kind of like the tokenism of that, Joshua, and that when I feel especially when we're called to spaces, they're calling you there because they have an expectation. And that expectation either can be based on, you mentioned your gender or your color, but they have an idea of what kind of product that you're going to contribute to them. And if that expectation is based on their formal bias of the way that you look or how you're perceived, then what you're going to be proposing to them is going to either be embraced or it's going to be tainted with a little bit of their touch and a little bit of kind of like breaking into your artistic shell of what you're actually trying to contribute. And I think it's important, like you mentioned, you said it was, I think you said the word controversial, but I think it's just self-preservation, one, and I think it's also just courage and standing up for yourself and realizing that I'm presenting you with my artistic vision, I'm presenting you with myself, and knowing that they called you there for that reason because they need you. And if you ask me to come, you're asking me to come as my full self. Now I know showing up as your full self, I feel like that's a challenge that I face every day. And I know there's spaces that I may not be able to give 100% Channie, or I can give maybe 85% Channie, but I know the portion that I am going to bring is going to be mine. And there are spaces that I realize that I have to remove myself from, and that's okay too. And I think it's just, I think we're all having those kind of conversations internally with ourselves right now, and that's important.
Absolutely. I think that is very important during this time. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share or add to this question? Hakeen?
Yes, so I feel like just keeping that conversation just going, I feel like that's very important, especially during this time period where there is social media, where there is, where it's more open, everything is more, it's not so much narrow-minded or people being so hush-hush, with so much being displayed just through different platforms as technology is involved, enlarging, or just the culture, the American culture is being, celebrated and things like that. And I was speaking with my grandfather not too long ago, and he was just saying, during the civil rights movement, it wasn't an international thing for Black people to be celebrated and things like that. We're in a time period where people are coming to the realization all around the world. I even have some colleagues across the pond in Scotland that reached out to me, hey, Hakeen, are you okay? XYZ, this. So just keeping people informed, having discussions, I feel like if I must add this, that we as artists, though Randall, you may feel that there's not much you can do with your instrument, just playing an African-American work, that speaks a lot of volumes. You're celebrating an African-American composer who took that time to embrace classical music, a universal language that we all communicate. So, yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add or share anything to this question? Kianna?
I could just say, like, if we just continue to keep speaking up for our rights as Black people, I feel like we've done a great job so far, I feel like there has been a lot of changes in society to where Black people are being acknowledged in a big and powerful way. But I feel like if we continue to keep speaking up and using our voices, our artistic voices, to communicate meaningful messages in society, I feel like this will be an end for racism and police brutality very soon.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alex, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree. I think the conversation definitely needs to stay in the mix. As a artist, you know, all of us are artistic and performers. I think we have the most powerful voices. If you look at the marches, if you look at the protesting and stuff like that, the people that people look up to are the artists. You know, you always see them in the front line, talking, encouraging. So I think the conversation is definitely needs to stay in the mix, especially just like Hakeen said, your instrument can be enough too. You know, there's a lot of emotions when we play. There's a lot of character when we play. In the voices and everything like that. So definitely the conversation needs to stay there within the mix. And then also there needs to be the solution as well. But I think that there will be the solution when you know, within the conversation. So yeah.
Thank you. Joshua?
I love everything that has been said so far on this question. I love it so much. Specifically what Joshua and Hakeen said, I think that, or speaking to what they said, I think that people often forget that a lot of the culture of this country has been incredibly not just enriched, but like is so much infused with Black culture. And I think that we've always had a strong voice in the culture of this country. It just has never been recognized strongly enough. And as artists, I think that our dual fight is to continue being ourselves and continuing to shine and being present, doing what we've always done and creating beautiful art and music. But in this fight to overturn systemic racism, making sure that our contributions are recognized for what they are as valuable foundations of the culture of this entire country. Whether that's music or visual arts or dance or theater or anything. So just continuing to do what we do, continuing to shine and be ourselves, but demanding that our voices and our contributions be recognized.
Thank you. And how about you, Angel?
I think as long as we continue to keep talking about this, continue to keep playing, continue to keep putting Black music out, creating more Black music, working with other Black artists, and we're seeing more and more people of other races come into the mix. Some of them simply have not had certain experiences to where they can understand what's going on, unfortunately, in the year of 2020. Some people still feel uneducated and uninformed. And I went to my first protest. This is the first time. There's always emotions. There's always emotions, there's always anger, there's always being upset as you look at the news, as you hear the music that comes out, as you hear, you know, different things that are going on. So I went to my first protest this year, and music was probably the biggest part of what happened at that protest. Everyone knew the words, but they didn't know the true meaning behind things like the Black National Anthem. Some people still never heard it before, but it was amazing to see the impact that music was simply having and the conversation that it was sparking amongst the little breaks we had during our protests. We got to sit down with other people, and they talked about what they didn't know, what they wanted to learn. We shared resources, so it was pretty amazing to keep the conversation going. More people are collaborating, more people are wanting to add their voices who aren't a part of the Black community to see how they can help. So I think it is really important that we do keep this conversation going and that we don't stray away from it.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I'm sorry to cut you off. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's great that you said that people were coming together to talk about how they can educate each other, because I think that sharing knowledge is so important during this time. There are a lot of people that are just not informed, or they don't have the knowledge of knowing, they don't have the resources to know. So just being in a space to be available, to just be present, to listen, to just absorb all you can, I think is really powerful right now. And I'm really glad that you had that experience of seeing people just share knowledge amongst each other. I think that's a beautiful thing. And speaking to collaboration, my next question leads me to, how have you collaborated with some other artistic genres or disciplines to leverage your artistic voice during this time? Joshua?
One thing that I've done has been to play music with my brother, which is something that I have not done in many years. My brother's a singer-songwriter who plays guitar, drums, lots of different instruments, and he mostly plays in different bands. I would say mostly along the like rock kind of axis or genre of music, whereas I have mostly been in terms of jazz and classical music. But the main reason why I teamed up with him was because in his songwriting, he puts a lot of politically charged and social justice emphasis into the meaning of his lyrics. And I think when it comes to what I do, I wanted to contribute musically to something that had that clarity of focus, because with piano, there's a lot that you can communicate, but there's only so much that can, there's only so clear the ideas can be verbalized when it comes to instrumental music. I mean, not to say that instrumental music cannot be intensely effective and, you know, emotional as a communicative tool. But the reason why I decided to team up with him and do a performance was because I really admired his songwriting, and I wanted to contribute to something that directly addressed, as directly as possible, police brutality and the government kind of turning its back on us.
I think it's so important to be intentional about what your next steps are, how you use your artistic voice, again, to get that knowledge and to get that information out there. So thank you. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add to that question? Yes, Kianna.
I can definitely agree with being exposed to different genres that are not your specialty. I feel like has definitely altered my artistry in a big way. I recently discovered this song called "I Want to Live" by I think it's Keenan Bryan, and the lyrics are, "I just want to live, God protect me," like, you know, talking about African Americans today and police brutality, and how specifically African American males today are very targeted in society. So definitely exposing myself to different genres of music and feeding off that energy to like go when you're doing artistic things, to understand the deeper meaning and to really convey that there is racism and police brutality in society. And it's our jobs as African American people to acknowledge that and to really make change for us people.
Thank you. I think that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. And I want to listen to that song. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone have anything they want to add? I do have a comment to read that just came in, and I think that this is great. It says, "Kudos to all of you for not allowing your artistry to die during the shutdown. You may have been shut down, but not shut out. Music is a universal language of love in the physical and spiritual, and you accepted this current status we're in for the good of yourselves and others. Continue to expand your talent to the greater, for the struggle with your talent so it can continue to be added voice and sound for all to hear. Together you can make a difference, however big or small. I salute you." I thought that was really great. Just to share that, because I know a lot of you are, as we've said, have had to pivot our work or have had experienced a lot of loss during this time. So I think that it's great to just have this moment of positive energy and synergy right now, because it's been difficult, but it's it says a lot about your resilience that you find ways to keep going and to be creative during this time. So thank you. And speaking a little bit to what we spoke about before, but I want to ask the question, how have you used your artistic form or your artistic endeavors to ground yourself during this time of uncertainty and difficulty?
Ever since I was younger, the arts has just been my way of coping through situations and also just bringing joy into my life. Now that we're dealing with the pandemic, the arts has definitely helped me to stay sane and to make sure to give me encouragement to not only, we're going through a pandemic right now, but we are going to see a brighter day. It's temporary, but hopefully we will see a brighter day. So the arts, especially different genres of music, musical theater, classical, gospel especially, has helped to encourage me to keep pressing on and to use God as guidance in my life to know that everything is temporary and we're all going to be okay.
Amen. I agree. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? Randall?
Yeah, going back to what we were saying about how we've all been impacted. I mean, all of my performances so far in the past few months have been virtual. But one of the good things about having to perform, through a virtual medium is that we actually have an opportunity now to connect with people who we wouldn't have been able to had we not been forced to do things virtually. So I've been so happy to have given some virtual performances for primary school age kids in the UK via Facebook Live through an organization called London Music Masters. And through my violin studio at Juilliard, I've been able to give a number of sort of private virtual concerts actually for COVID patients who are in hospitals. So we've been connected with doctors there who can, hold up a computer or a phone, in the hospital room, and I can share, an emotional experience with a patient in that way. So it all just serves to remind me that, what we do is important, and what we do does have an overwhelmingly positive effect on a lot of people. And knowing that in a time surrounded by such negative light and such negative energy really helps me to stay up. So.
Wow, thank you. And I'm so happy to hear that you are using your artistry to give back to those who have experienced the COVID-19 virus. I think that's a beautiful thing. That's amazing. And we need more acts of kindness like that. So thank you. So I would say this next segment is really focused on how more seasoned professionals in the field of the arts, whether it's an artist or an arts administrators, can be better supportive during these times, especially for us emerging and aspiring arts administrators and musicians. So now that's where we're channeling into. And so my first question is, how can seasoned artists lend a helping hand or be of help during this time of uncertainty?
I was thinking about the concept of, one thing I want to say, I love that this panel is just the various generations and also the artistic backgrounds as well. And I think that just speaks about the importance in this movement that we're all kind of having our voices heard, and that we're also showing up and we're creating spaces where we can be vulnerable. And I think speaking to that, I'm thinking about the concept of seasoned arts administrators or seasoned artists, that I think for them, they're going to have to view us differently. They're going to have to kind of like get rid of the stigma that as youth, our youth does not translate to our contribution, that our artistic ability, that our skill set, that our vision that we want to see for the world, that doesn't correlate with our age, that our voices are just as important, our vision, that what we want to see our society, what we want to see our artist community become and build into is just as valuable as someone who's been in the field for 25 years. And I do think that even for myself, I feel like people are perceiving me slightly different and are bringing me into spaces that are also inviting me into spaces where they're not only seeing me for my youth or my artistic background or my admin background, they're seeing me for just Channie. And that's kind of becoming aligned. And I've noticed that within the past month or so. And I do think that for seasoned arts professionals, including arts administrators as well as artists, to really address that within themselves. I would say that's a bias, to realize that as youth, it also brings new ideas. It brings also collective thought. And I think with this upcoming generation, that's going to be kind of a shift that we're going to be able to see. And I'm excited about that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to this question? Hakeen?
As a young singer, I understand that given the current pandemic, a lot of opportunities are very limited. So I understand that, but just something as little as giving an encouraging word, that speaks a lot of volumes. That says that you care, that says that you are valued, that says that just keep pushing and striving. This is temporary, but the artists, we go through things daily. I know for myself, being a part of the spotlight and things like that, and receiving very limited opportunity as a young artist, not being seasoned enough to receive those opportunities or to stay connected with larger platforms, so I think just things like that, are very important.
I absolutely agree with you. I do have a comment that I want to read here. It's from George Shirley. I'm sorry, his name is George Shirley. He has made a comment. He is the first Black tenor to perform at the Met. He was also the recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts Award from President Obama. He's also a CAAPA board member. And I just want to take a moment to read his comment. It reads, "The best contribution one can make is to be oneself in fulfilling one's role in whatever situation one finds oneself. Your work and the quality of it will speak volumes about you and just might work to affect change in attitudes of those with whom one collaborates. One would be disappointed if expecting the result to be an opening of the floodgates rather than an opening of the door that admits a few at a time." Thank you, Mr. Shirley, for your comment. We really appreciate that, especially now that we're channeling into how more seasoned professionals can be of support and help to us emerging artists and arts administrators. Thank you so much. I also want to read just one more comment here. It's from Dr. Yola. It reads, "Music is healing. I love this concept, particularly during the pandemic. Music is healing." Thank you all for comments. We love to hear from you, from our viewers out there. Again, this is live on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in to Unplugged. And just before I move on to our next question, I just want to read it one more time. How can seasoned artists lend a helping hand or be of help during this time of uncertainty? Does anyone have anything else to add before we move? Yes, Kianna and then Angel. Perfect.
I can definitely say that seasoned professionals continue to set the example for emerging young artists. Especially for me, as a young person, I feel like I'm learning every day from seasoned professionals to become better at my craft. So if they continue to keep setting the examples and setting the level high for us, so that when we get to that level, we'll know what to do and even make different things come into action as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Angel?
I was pretty much going to say the same thing, continuing to set an example, and for us to remember as well that as we are going through this pandemic and this challenging time, that role models, people we look up to, our seasoned professionals are also going through similar things, and they are actively making themselves available as they're searching for things to do as well. I've seen a lot of free master classes on people who were too booked, too busy to even sit down with a student and discuss their career paths with them. Mm-hmm. So for them to just continue sharing their resources and reaching out to young emerging artists that they see needing help or that they could give wisdom to.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. And kind of speaking to your response, my next question is, how can the gap be bridged between young and seasoned artists? So how can we start to make that bridge happen? Joshua?
I'd like to see more young artist programs for singers, particularly that aren't opera singers. So when I made my transition from like not singing opera anymore, well, let me go back further. I knew that when I was trying to be an opera singer, I knew that I had a specific path. I knew that I had to go to graduate school. I had to maybe get an artist diploma, and then I did a young artist program at an opera company, and then that pretty much would launch my career. But when I decided to become more of an interdisciplinary artist, I realized that that path is really just whatever I make of it. I know a few like theaters, like the Public Theater or like National Sawdust here in New York have programs where it's kind of like a young artist program, but it's more professional, and I'm not quite at that level yet. I would really like to see more programs for artists and singers who don't ascribe to one particular kind of music.
I think that's a great idea, and I could also agree that we do need more opportunities like that. Thank you. Does anyone else have any more ideas as far as how we could bridge the gap? Hakeen?
Piggybacking off of what Joshua Banbury says, just using your platform to bring about programs as far as, like I know Joyce DiDonato, Mezzo at the Met, she has this masterclass that she does at Carnegie Hall, and she features a lot of young artists or those emerging artists to perform. And I think that's really important, especially if you're just getting out there and someone who is starting their brand, networking, reaching out to some young artists. You know, I get the whole idea of, you know, well, this person has a great name, but what about those, you know, who have potential or voices? You know, a lot of us, I go to Morgan State University, for an example, and we don't have a really strong opera program. So a lot of my opportunities, I mean, I've gained a couple opportunities through Morgan State, but most of my opportunities came from the choir and not so much the operatic, unless somebody in the choir or somebody in the opera program, for an example, was, you know, getting ready to launch into that emerging artist field and had some connections and things of that nature. But just simple things like that, I feel like would be greatly appreciated, because it's really hard and very limiting to get your feet wet in whatever it is that you're trying to do as an artist.
I completely agree with you. You raised some great points. Kianna?
Yeah, I agree with everyone as far as we need more opportunities today for young artists specifically. I currently have a platform. I was a former Miss District of Columbia's Outstanding Teen for the Miss America organization. So I created a platform called CARE, Keeping Arts Relevant for Everyone. And I made it my priority to provide, not only to mentor youth, but to provide affordable arts education and accessible resources for people coming from all kinds of backgrounds so that they can follow their dreams. So not only myself trying to make a difference, but I feel like if everybody can come together and try to make more opportunities, different organizations, so everyone can really prosper into their art form, I feel like that would be a great start.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kianna. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share for this question?
I was thinking about what Hakeen mentioned about senior arts administrators or senior professionals within the arts using their platform. And I think sometimes there can be you talked about the gap. I think sometimes there's like a misstep, something that's missing. In this case, that someone a platform and exposure doesn't necessarily equal networking. It doesn't necessarily build relationships. And I think that's the part that's missing. And by being able to have someone who's not only going to open the door for you, but also walk through that door with you and help guide you in your process of learning the new environment or building those new relationships, I think is really important. So just kind of speaking on that for members that are tuning in or joining us that do have that platform, it's also important that you invite that person into your platform, into your network as well. And that's how you're able to grow and build that community, whether that be personal gain or professional gain as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anyone else would like to add anything? Okay, and I think this may be either our last question or second to last question, depending on how much time we have left. But my next question is, potentially, what could be some possible next steps to turn our industry around, and also to turn also and maybe pivot your own individual career and where you are? Randall, would you like to go first?
Sure. To broadly generalize, I would say invest in the future. Invest in the next generation, invest in the artists that are 5 and 6 and 7 years old right now, who don't even know what it is that they do and don't have access to. Make sure that we are looking out for those that need a little bit of extra help attaining the resources and getting the exposure to the arts that we were all so lucky to have when we were young. One thing we're learning a lot in the days of these Black Lives Matter protests and Instagram posts and all of these things around these issues is that there are a lot of kids in this country who don't have the same opportunities as their neighbors, right? So we need to look out and lift up those communities in a way that opens their eyes and their ears and their hearts and their minds to more of the things that they're capable of and inspires them to go forward with the energy that, I can do something not only that I love, but that I can inspire people with and create change with. So that's what I would say for potential next steps. Invest in our future.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Joshua?
I completely agree with everything that Randall said. I think that going hand in hand with investing in the future is everything that's happened so far has been a wake-up call for me, for us to come together as artists, as Black people, in order to invest in our future. I mean, we can't face the challenges that face us today, I think, by ourselves. I mean, as strong as we are as individuals, I think it is together that we will be able to face the things that we need to face. I think that, like, through arts organizations and the ones that I've worked with in particular, but I know there's many, many organizations doing incredible work. But through the organizations I've worked with, I've been so inspired to see the older generation inspiring the younger generation, telling them that they can achieve whatever they want, whatever they believe they can, whatever they put their mind to. They've adapted everything they've needed to change in order to face these times. And it's, through coming together, we can overcome obstacles that really seem insurmountable at the time. So I think that has been overwhelmingly my response to all this, is to come together as artists in this time.
Thank you. Hakeen?
Just to piggyback off of both responses, Randall and Joshua had made some very wonderful points. I go to an HBCU and incredible talent, but again, very low funding. Not well funded, I should say. I mean, we have a good reputation, but I feel that we can be pulled further to what it is that we desire, as far as funding, costumes and things like that, or being promoted, and just gaining that exposure, talking amongst your colleagues, seasoned artists come have discussions, things like that. Do more works that are contemporary. There are works that are not fairly promoted. We do the same works over and over again. Just different things like that. So I feel that is very imperative that we do that. I sing and have gigs with a lot of with a lot of people from like the Peabodys and the University of Maryland, and that's great and all. you know, and things like that. And I go to these schools and I see like the billboards, we need this, we need that, but nobody's not coming into our universities or conservatories and asking us, what can we do? What can we need? There's only been but a few opportunities, but when I sit amongst my colleagues, you know, who go to the very well-funded and known conservatories with the big names, they say things such as, you know, I had this opportunity by so forth and so on, and I just don't feel like we have that, especially in the African American community. So just things like that that we can just include. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Joshua?
I'll just keep mine really short. I just think more Black artists should not be afraid of doing administrative work. I initially was, but I think that's where the change always begins, in the artistic administrative work. I learned that I did an internship at Carnegie Hall, and I really learned that the people with the power in the arts are the people who sit behind the computers, that make the phone calls and commission the works and handle the money and the budgets. If we have more artists, more Black artists behind in the boardroom, I think it will make a lot more room for Black artists on stage.
I absolutely agree with that. Thank you. Thank you. Kianna?
I agree. I can definitely say that if we stay open-minded and also I feel like inclusive to the African American community when it comes to casting for different productions, not really sticking to one specific look, but going for creativity. One thing that I like about the university that I'm going to now, well, the college, Manhattan School of Music, I like that they do inclusive casting. So regardless whether you're African American, white, Asian, anything, if you have the talent and the gift to perform the role the best, then you should be guaranteed that role. So I feel like if we work that way in society to where, you know, African Americans are not pushed away when it comes to artistic abilities, I feel like we will work better in the artistic field. So if we work that way, I feel like we'll be pretty much good.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And how about you, Channie?
I've been thinking about this just concept in general, especially with a lot of arts organizations and non-arts organizations that are developing these equity statements and these policies that are supposed to, I don't want to be PC, but that are supposed to bring new light to their board or bring new light to their staff on how they're going to be reevaluating their practices in the community. And I think one of the most important things, even though you may be developing an equity statement and a policy, but that you're keeping Black identity at the center of it. And what that means, and Josh mentioned about bringing artists and Black arts administrators of color onto the decision-making table to form that, and that the policy doesn't become just a rug that's used to parade on for specific programming that identifies with a specific heritage or group, but that it creates a strategy amongst these arts organizations and these artists around the Black identity, whether that be based on your community, whether that be based on your region or your state, but that it's a collective strategy behind that.
Thank you. Thank you. And how about you, Angel?
Part of the reason that I got involved in arts management was seeing that those people, like Joshua said a little earlier, that are really in control and really having a hand in what's going on and helping the industry turn around are the people behind the computers and answering the cell phones. So to get involved in those positions, put yourselves in the spaces where you can have new opportunities. As much as we want seasoned professionals to come to us, we go to them as well and speak to them, whether it's through social media, through different apps, through Zoom masterclass calls, and actually let them know what you want. Let them know what we want changed, what we want to see different, how we can have things turned around in that manner.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And lastly, Alex, how about you?
I think the way that we could turn the industry around, one is unity. I think that two is better than one. right? There's no producer that you see, there's no musician that can do it by themselves. You know, if you're a piano player, you're gonna need a drummer. If you're a drummer, you're gonna need a bass player. You know, that's one. I think you need unity, love, patience. I think people don't understand, especially in our environment, that we're put in position to where we're able to give opportunities. And a lot of people don't understand their position. So I think that when you're in these high positions as vocalists, as violinists, as this, as that, it's up to us to give opportunities. It's up to us to hear what the younger generation, is looking for, mentally, physically, and it's up to us to kind of change that. You know, a statement says that you have not because you ask not. You know, and if the younger generation is on picking back off an Angel, you know, in order to take it to the next level, you have to take leaps, you have to take jumps, and you have to ask. You have to ask. There's no way to success without being a student, without humbling yourself. Even people in power, you have to humble yourself, you know? So I think to turn that around, I think for us, is definitely to give opportunity. And when you give opportunity, then it meets preparation. And then when you meet preparation, you know the end result. So I think that's something that we can do, as well as conversations, and as well as hearing. A lot of people hear, but they don't understand. So let's hear them, let's understand. Even the people that we look up to, you know, we always have to stay a student and always be a student. You know, there's nobody greater than the other person. We're all students. And you know, you are what your character is, you know, so always be mindful of what your character is, be mindful of your integrity, even people in power, and especially as the younger generation trying to come up. So it's up to us to understand, to listen, and to grow with them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. I just want to give you all a big round of applause. Thank you for participating. That is our time, unfortunately, for today's panel. I can't thank you all enough for just having this open, transparent dialogue. I hope our viewers and those that are going to tune in after we finish this panel will just reflect on what's been shared today. I think there was a lot of positive things that we could all just learn from and we can take in and apply it to our lives in hopes of pushing boundaries in a positive way. And as we just said, turning this industry around, turning our careers around in the right direction and getting back on track. So thank you all again. And before we say goodbye to our panelists, I would love if you all just tell me where you currently are. For me, I will say right now, I am in Severna Park, Maryland. And if I call your name, just say where you're from. Joshua Banbury.
New York City.
Randall Goosby.
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Thank you. Joshua Jenkins.
Silver Spring, Maryland.
Hakeen Henderson.
Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you. Angel Bethea.
Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Channie Jones.
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Alex Plummer.
Washington, D.C.
And Kianna Marie Kelly-Futch.
Yes, Washington, D.C.
Awesome. Thank you all again so much. And I'm going to say goodbye to you all now. And now we're going to transition into some final remarks.
I would like to say thank you to our moderator, the panelist, executive director, and chairperson for providing such a rich and open dialogue. The panelists have truly provoked great thought and hopefully further conversation. I'd like to also offer a special thanks to all of our viewers for sharing in this moment. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.